Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm sharing more 30-minute dinner ideas. So these are all meals that you can get ready in 30 minutes or less. You'll be spending less than 30 minutes in the kitchen, which is really nice for busy weeknights, or if you just don't feel like cooking. That's always me right now. I'm definitely trying to go for easier meals, crock pot meals, things like that. So if that is also what you like to cook, you're definitely going to like today's video. And let's go ahead and get right into it. For this first dinner, I'm making an Italian sausage and Orzo soup. This is one that I've been making for quite a while and our family really likes it. I'm just starting off with a pound of some sausage in a pan here. Use whatever kind you want. Then I'm also adding in one large onion that I chopped into smaller pieces. Once all of the sausage was all browned up and the onions are cooked through and nice and translucent, I'm adding in a full carton of chicken broth. This is a bone broth. Use whatever you have on hand, that's totally fine. I just added a little splash in at first to deglaze the bottom of the pan, and then I'm adding in the full rest of the carton. So like I said, this is about 4 cups of chicken broth. Next, I'm adding in a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. You're just going to dump this right in there, and then we're going to be adding in our seasonings. So you're going to want 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, a little bit of salt and pepper. I do add mostly just pepper at this point, and then I'll add a little bit of salt later on if it needs it. Once that has come up to a boil, you're going to be adding in your Orzo pasta. So the recipe calls for 1 cup of Orzo, but I always like to add just a little bit extra just because that's how my husband likes it. He really likes a thicker soup for this one. So cook that for about 8 to 10 minutes until your Orzo is just about done. Once you're at that point, then you're going to add in a couple cups of spinach. I do like to rip ours into pieces just to kind of make smaller pieces for our kids. I feel like they notice it a lot less when I do that. So you're going to let this cook for a couple more minutes, basically just until that spinach is wilted. And then we're going to be adding in just a little bit of something to make it a little bit more creamy, but you can really add whatever you want at the end here. The recipe calls for some half and half. I did not have any on hand. I just added in probably a couple tablespoons of sour cream and a little splash of milk. This is where I like to add any extra seasoning. I just added a tiny bit of salt and pepper, stirred this together, and this is really good. You can serve this with grated Parmesan cheese. I did not have any on this night, so we had it with mozzarella cheese. But this is a really good one that our kids really love too. For this next dinner, I'm making some sloppy joes with some homemade fries in the air fryer. These are a much healthier alternative to your typical deep fried French fry. My kids love them. They're just like an oven fry. You can make them in the oven or the air fryer. But here I just have a couple of russet potatoes. Of course, I do leave the peels on mine, and then I just slice them so they're super thin and nice and long pieces. Add a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, toss it all together, and then these are going to go in the air fryer for about 20 minutes at 400 degrees in my air fryer. It is going to be a little bit different just depending on your air fryer, but that's what I would recommend. Or you can also throw them in the oven at about 375 for, again, probably about like half an hour, I would say, in the oven. But again, it's just going to depend a little bit on your oven, so just watch them and basically cook them until they are nice and crispy. Now moving on to the sloppy joes, I just have 1 pound of some lean ground beef in my pot here, and then I'm adding in a small onion that I have chopped up. You're just going to brown all of that together and get it cooked through. Then for the sauce, you're going to add in half a can of tomato sauce, about 1/8 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of some ketchup, 1/4 cup of barbecue sauce. I always use the Sweet Baby Ray's one. That is our personal favorite. And then you're going to want about 3/4 of a tablespoon of some apple cider vinegar. This is just going to give it a little bit of tanginess. And then you're going to want about a tablespoon of mustard. And then you're just going to mix all of that together and let it simmer on the stove for like 10 to 15 minutes until all of that sauce is really absorbed into your ground beef. And I promise you guys, these are like the best sloppy joes. My husband loves these. He loves when I make sloppy joes. I would say they're just a slight like tangy version of a sloppy joe, but it still has that barbecue flavor. And this was such a yummy dinner. One of our family favorites for sure, and we make it quite a bit. For this next dinner, I'm making a Mexican chicken Alfredo. I'm honestly not even sure what to call this. This was definitely a throw together meal that I wasn't sure I was making until I actually got to it. But this is actually a crock pot meal, but you still spend less than 30 minutes in your kitchen total, so I thought it'd be perfect. I'm just starting off with 3 chicken breasts in my crock pot, and I added probably about a teaspoon of some taco seasoning. You can definitely add a little bit more if you want to. And then I also added in some onion powder, garlic powder, as well as some parsley, mostly just for color here. And then of course you're going to want to add a little bit of salt and pepper in there as well. Of course you can play around with seasonings here if you want. And then this is just a can of petite diced tomatoes, as well as a jar of Alfredo sauce. This was just a garlic Alfredo sauce, but you can use whatever you have on hand and it should be perfect for this recipe. I think I ended up cooking this in my crock pot for about 4 hours on high, and it ended up about perfect. Once it's all done, I just shredded it up with my KitchenAid mixer. If you guys have never shredded chicken this way, I promise it's the easiest thing ever. If you want that really finely shredded chicken, this is gonna be perfect for you. I just do it on a really low setting. I keep it right in the crock pot. It only takes a second. Way easier than shredding it with forks. At this point, I tasted it and I felt like it needed a little something else, so I added in some salsa. I probably added in 3/4 of a cup to a cup of salsa. I just used up the rest of this jar. I stirred that in there, and then I also added in some spinach. Now this I would say is not Mexican at all, but I had spinach to use up in my fridge and I like to sneak veggies in where I can. So I just went ahead and added it and it worked totally fine, but you can skip that if you want, or you could also add some peppers while the chicken is cooking, and I think that would also work really good in this recipe. While that was wilting, while the spinach was wilting, I just cooked up some penne pasta on my stove and let that completely cook through. Once it was all cooked, I added it right into the chicken, mixed it all together, and then I'm going to add some cheese, add some seasonings, and it's good to go. I ended up adding in some salt and pepper as well as some mozzarella cheese. Now this was the end of the week. I did not have any more cheddar cheese, so I just used the mozzarella that I had on hand. But if you have cheddar cheese, I would definitely recommend that. I feel like it pairs better with more of the Mexican flavors in this dish. So I definitely would say use the cheddar cheese if you have it. But my husband really liked this. I definitely think I'll make it again. It was really, really good. For this next dinner, I'm making some meatball marinara subs. Now this is one of my go-to favorite dinners to make. My kids love them and they're super easy. I try and keep these meatballs on hand. I just dumped in probably half of the family size bag into my pot. I added in a full jar of marinara sauce with a little bit of water just to kind of get the last little bit out of the jar. And then I'm just simmering this on my stove until the meatballs are all heated through. While those are cooking, I am just getting my sub rolls ready. These are just the ones from Walmart. Just cut them just like you would a Subway sub. Don't cut them all the way through, otherwise you're gonna have meatballs going everywhere, but just get those all ready to go while your meatballs are cooking. Once your meatballs are all done cooking, you're just gonna add however many you want into your sub rolls. Another little tip that you can do is for kids, if you want to not give them a full sub, you can throw theirs in a hot dog bun. It works really well. It's the perfect little sub for them. And then here is I'm adding a little bit more of the marinara sauce on top. I like mine nice and saucy. Add that on there, and then you're gonna top it with either mozzarella cheese or provolone cheese. Either works really good. I've used both and it always turns out. Then you're just gonna broil these in the oven for a couple of minutes until they're nice and toasty. And these are so good, you guys. For just a really quick and easy dinner, you probably have a lot of this stuff on hand. Always a hit in our house, and I think you guys would like this one. This next dinner is going to be a sausage, pepper, and rice skillet. Again, this is one that we've been making for a really, really long time. My kids love it. They love any sort of rice dish. And you guys know, if you watch my grocery hauls, that our kids love peppers. They down them, so this is like the perfect dish for them. So I'm just starting off with cutting up my peppers, just chopping them up. The recipe calls for half of whatever kind of peppers you want, so you're gonna want a full pepper total. But you guys, I usually will add 2 full peppers just because our family really likes them, so I chop those up. And then I've also got a yellow onion here, and I'm just chopping that up as well. And then for the sausage in this recipe, you can really add whatever you want. You can do kielbasa, whatever you have on hand is fine. I'm using a venison Polish sausage just because we have so much of this on hand. I'm just adding a little bit of olive oil into my Dutch oven, and I'm just gonna heat it up, and then I'll add in the sausage here. I just like to cook mine for probably like 3 minutes or so, just until it's starting to get warm. This is pre-cooked sausage, and then I'm adding in the peppers and the onions, and then I'm gonna cook this for probably another like 4 to 5 minutes, just until the onions and the peppers and everything is cooked through. Once it's all cooked through, add in a big scoop of minced garlic and let it cook for another like 30 seconds until it's nice and fragrant. Now to make this sauce that's gonna cover the rice and peppers, this is about probably a little bit more than 5 tablespoons of tomato paste. The recipe calls for 5, but I probably added a little bit of extra. And then this is 1 1/4 cup of chicken broth, a teaspoon of paprika, a 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt and pepper, and then you're just gonna mix all of this together and let it come up to a simmer. And then I'm gonna add my rice in. So I use brown rice for this recipe, but you can use whatever kind of rice your family prefers. And I always have mine cooked and ready to go, and I just keep it in the freezer, and then when I need it I can unthaw it. So that's what I did here. I'm just adding it in there and letting it warm up and completely heat through, and then this is done. I just like to let those flavors absorb together for a little bit, and you're good to go. This is such a great quick and easy dinner. My kids love it. It's not spicy or anything like that. It's pretty mild, and I think you guys will like this one. Alright guys, that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope that you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.